Good day. This is Aakash Patel with Elevate Inc. and you're watching our podcast, Elevating Today. This is season 1, episode 4, and I'm so excited to have Taylor Ranker on as our guest today. He's going to be talking about Questmont Strategic Wealth Advisors and their move to the Tampa Bay area and how they're giving back. You know, as always at Elevate Inc., we want to highlight local organizations and clients that are helping our community, helping our city elevate Tampa. Today I want to recognize Keystone Prep High School. First, this is the first school in the Tampa Bay area that's focused on catering curriculum and learning environments to students instead of the other way around. The school is located in Odessa, Florida, and it's got a unique approach to learning which allows students to grow with their teachers as they advance through each grade level. They've got a 100% graduation rate, and the head of school, Ben Pomelis, is going to be on our show here in a few weeks. But I want you to know that he encourages everyone who is interested to reach out to him, and we're going to put out his information. And we have lots of events coming up for the school to give back. Some are silent auctions and some include an in-person breakfast event. But at Elevate Inc., as always, if you're interested in our podcast, if you're interested in getting to learn more about us, reach out to us at our website, elevate-inc.com. This is Aakash Patel saying thank you for watching, and we're so excited to have Taylor on our show. Good day and welcome to Elevating Today. This is season 1, episode 4, and I'm so excited to have my guest, Mr. Taylor Ranker. Taylor, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Here. Excellent.
Thanks.
Happy, healthy.
Thanks so much for joining us. And I know, Taylor, a lot of folks are asking, what is Questmont Strategic Advisors and who are you? So tell us a little bit about your background and how you started your business.
So Questmont Strategic Wealth Advisors is what we call a virtual family office. So it's in the wealth management space. But we figured out about a decade ago there was this underserved area. In fact, many of your clients, these business owners or these successful people. So what happens is success creates complexity. So we literally formed a virtual family office where we pull together all the advisors, the legal, the tax, insurance, everybody, benefits, consulting, and we bring that to the business owners to literally help them simplify their lives.
And for the folks that are watching and learning about you for the first time, tell everyone where you're from and where you originally started the business.
Okay, so I'm from central Pennsylvania, conservative area. It's been great to us. In fact, there's 2 still branches running there. The main backbone of the firm. Got great partners there. Nathan, the vice president, he's there. Brent, the CFO, trust officer. So I'm from there originally, but in 1979, my father's career took us to Los Angeles.
Okay.
So I spent 4 years in Los Angeles. So hence I'm a mutt. Part Central PA conservative, part Los Angeles, whatever you want to call that. But the career brought me back. I started in the industry with a big company in the 80s in LA, and then they moved me back to Central Pennsylvania to run one of their branches. And I realized I didn't like that. I didn't like being a salesperson who represented the company. I wanted to be a consultative person who represented the client. So in the mid-90s, we became, I guess, disruptors. We became fiduciaries. We began to push back against the industry because we wanted to represent the client, not a sales function.
And you know, at Elevate Inc., we're always talking about Elevate Tampa, right? And
Yep.
we're in Tampa, and you're now learning all the great things about Tampa. So why did you decide to open a Tampa office?
So I've had a love affair with Tampa literally since 1995. So we've been licensed and doing business in the Bay Area since '96. Okay, I first came down here. I think a friend had a place on Davis Island, fell in love with that. And then my little sister did me a huge favor in 2004. She took a teaching job with Hillsborough County. And at that time, I was a bachelor. So I said, Tina, I'll make you a deal. You're doing good in the community, but you're poor. So, right, she's a school teacher. By definition, she's not going to be. I said, but I love the Bay Area, so I'll buy a home and share it with you. So in '05, I bought a house out in New Tampa, and she and I shared it for several years. And then I met Sonia, got married, and well, that's a whole different story. Well, so I've had a love affair with the Bay Area. We were afforded the opportunity to open a branch, quite frankly, because of COVID. It took what was a 3-year plan that the partners had agreed. We were going to have a physical branch here in 3 years, but COVID sort of shifted that and moved it to a 3-month plan.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, how does COVID affected you personally, professionally, and to your clients?
So I don't want this to sound callous, but personally, it's been a blessing because it allowed us. So we were spending lots of time in our second home in the Bay Area, about 3-4 months a year. We had come down in March, and we're going to be here just for a few weeks. And because of the lockdowns, we decided to stay. So we were running our business in part from here, from our Tampa home. And so COVID in that sense has been good because it forwarded this Tampa branch, which by the way is at 4300 West Cypress. We just opened the physical branch in August. Business-wise, however, it's different. We're a wealth management firm, so people get very scared. So For us, it was really two or three stages. The first thing we did in February, March, and April was we did what I call the triage stage. That's where clients just need to know that we know what we're doing, that their plan, so we call it a wealth stress test. So we redid their wealth stress test to make sure their retirement plans, their charitable plans, their business exit plans, whatever they were still on track. So we did triage. And then we went into this sort of stage where we could actually breathe a little bit and start to work on sort of growth. So that came sort of in the late summer, and now, as you know, lately we're really starting to, as things heal a little bit, we're starting to be able to move forward.
And that's exciting, and you're here at an exciting time, and I know that we're all excited to have your company and your folks visit and spend a lot of time in our community. And speaking of, I know a lot of projects you've worked on throughout the careers in your business has taken you all over. What's one of the most exciting projects you've enjoyed through your business?
Professional projects, Aakash?
Professional.
Well, I don't want to get too complicated, but it's a particular client. They were referred to us by a CPA. The CPA was frustrated because the client's net worth was about $30 million. They were working with a local trust company who was charging them $100,000 a year to manage their portfolio. But the CPA was angry because the trust company hadn't even addressed their wills and estate plan. Their estate plan was 25 years old. Wow. So he literally grabbed the client by the collar and said, you need to go talk to Questmont and get a wealth plan done. So it took us about 6 months, but when the team collaborated, we were able to really devise this creative plan, which, should I share the details?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was an eye doctor who had just turned 70 and a half, and as a result of that, he had three problems. One, he was going to have to take a lot of money out of his IRA, which he didn't need, since he was still making over $1 million a year in his business. Two, he had two children that weren't working in the business and one who was becoming a doctor in the business. So that creates a family dilemma, right? And three, he had enough wealth that there was going to be a substantial estate tax due. So he brought our wealth team in. And what we were able to do is come up with this strategy. First we took his IRA, we pushed it back into his company's pension plan. So he no longer had an IRA. Then we wrote up a plan where the son was going to take over control of the company on paper. So now the father would only own 4% of the company, but the son was going to buy the company out over the next 10 years. By doing that maneuver, now that the father only owns 4% of the company, he doesn't have to take any money out of the IRA or pension.
Wow.
Right, so it saved him, he's going to have to take about $250 a year out that he didn't need, so it saved him about $75,000 a year in taxes. We were then able to take that money that was freed up that wasn't being forced out in the taxes, and we used that to set up a wealth replacement trust, which was outside of the estate, and that money purchased some life insurance, which would then go to his two children that weren't in the business. So we solved all three problems with one overarching strategy.
And how long did it take approximately?
6 months.
Wow, so that's
Yeah, because it's multiple meetings with he and his wife and the team, but that's what we do. That is what true wealth management. I get pissed off, quite frankly, because everybody in our industry says wealth advisor, wealth management, but there's an actual industry definition, and when you put that stringent definition around it, only 7% of us actually deliver a true wealth management solution, which is solving that coordination, that simplification.
That's exciting. And at Elevate Inc., we're always talking about helping our city and our community.
Yep.
And you recently, you and your wife, Sonia, of course, made a contribution to the Advent Health Carrollwood Foundation, and you're also involved in some other initiatives. Talk about Questmont overall as community giving, and why is it important to give back to you?
So I view us really just as a vessel, if you think about it that way. So whatever money or income comes to us or property, we're only stewards of that for as long as we're here on planet Earth. So one, we're only stewards of that money and that property. Two, the more that you let it flow through you, the more it seems to flow in general. So it's just a philosophy of ours. So we were very, very involved. I'm a past big brother, that was an interesting time in my life. As a bachelor, and I decided, because I had the bandwidth, I wanted to be a big brother. So I did that. We were very involved in leukemia, lymphoma. Most recently, we did a program for the Iron Lions back in Pennsylvania, which was helping the young men who chose to stay after the Penn State child debacle, all of that. Mm-hmm. So they formed a charity to honor the kids who did stay. We helped with that. So Sonia and I and my team in general just have the bandwidth, and it's something we feel like the community is going to be good to us. At a minimum, we should be good to it.
And I know that this industry, as you talked about with the economy and the election maybe,
yep.
We had a great talk recently, a few weeks ago, with the economic update that you and your team presented to the local business community. What does your industry look like the next 5 years, and why are you excited about being in this business?
So the industry is getting its collective ass kicked, pardon my French, but it needs this purging out of the sales industry. It wants to be treated as professional, but it's still a sales industry. So it wants to be seen more like a grown-up industry. So it's being forced to become more of a consultant, more of a fiduciary. So I see more of that, and I think that's healthy. That's good for consumers. That's good for Americans. So the industry's slowly figuring this out. As to the election, really economically, that's usually a moot point. I always like to remind people that think of Barack Obama and President Reagan, two competing philosophies, right? Polar opposites. The stock market returns for their 8-year, 10 years were exactly equal.
Wow.
Right. So at the end of the day, business is business, and we need these things. They're essential. So the markets really don't behave all that differently under either president.
Now, there's a lot of folks watching, Taylor, that are going to say, hey, it's great that Questmont is here in Tampa Bay, but they're a wealth advisor firm. There's so many. What do you say to them that makes you special and stand out over the others?
Well, so good that there are many, because there are millions of people here, right? So there are different people. So number one, we stay in our lane. We're not good for everyone.
Right.
If you don't have the 5 to 50 million of net worth, or a business that's doing 5 to 50 million of revenue, you're really probably not going to harness our tools. So we really are phenomenal in that space because we built the services. Number one, we are business owners. We have 3 branches. We make employee decisions. We have a pension. We have health care. Ask any of the advisors at the big firms when the last time was they had to fire someone or hire someone. Never. So I can look you as a business owner in the eye, and I know what it's like to be a business owner. And quite frankly, 90% of our industry is an employee of a bigger company. So partly because of our space, we've figured out that that's where we can really shine. And we're creative. Right. We've created a service you simply can't get elsewhere. Who else really so I'll just sum it up this way. I love to ask business owners, when was the last time your financial advisor, your CPA, your attorney, and your insurance people got in a room for an hour and worked on nothing but your concerns? You know what that answer always is? Taylor, that never happens.
Yeah.
Well, at Questmont, it happens.
And so leadership is important to us in the business community, and you're a leader at your company. But you've talked about your business and your team. Give us a landscape of who are some of the leaders on your team besides yourself?
So, oh boy, I think there are 13 of us now. So Nathan, the vice president, he's phenomenal. He's in the back here, so I don't want his head to get too big. We have my wife, Sonia, who's a partner, who's a bit of a math geek. So she's this elegant, brilliant math geek. So she's a partner. We have Brent. Brent, I describe, he's been with me for 30 years. I describe him. He's our COO, CFO. He's the best lieutenant a general could ever ask for. Oh my gosh, we've got Trudy, our client services manager. She's amazing. She's put up with for 20-some years. Ricky, who runs client service. I mean, amazing. We recently brought on Andy Otta, who's a trust guy, came from BNY Mellon. So when the big companies shed some talent, we pick up the good folks. So without all of that, what I do, which is the visionary and the creative part, couldn't exist. Could not exist.
No, and it's great that you have such a well-known team too, because I'm sure the logistics during this time got you all closer together. But a lot of business owners are entrepreneurs, right? And they have mentors. Who is one of your mentors that helped you throughout the way?
Boy. Well, I have a mentor in the industry, not so much the business owner part. 2. So one was my grandfather. My grandfather's an interesting story. Great Depression in 1912. He's born, and then his father dies when he's 12.
Oh my gosh.
So he has to quit school at the 7th grade, and he has to go to work driving a milk truck to take care of his mom and his 3 younger siblings. So he does that for 20 years, and along comes World War II, and he was fed up driving truck. So he starts a furniture and appliance business during World War II out of his house.
Wow.
So by the time little old Taylor here is born in the 60s, my grandpa's famous. He's got this store, he's on the board of the York Bank, he's doing millions of dollars in revenue. So he's very, very, very street smart, however, not book smart. He didn't have a Questmont, he didn't have an expert team, so therefore he didn't have a succession plan. Right. Didn't have a really good estate plan. Didn't have a real good pension plan. So he died in the 1970s. He and my grandmother died a few months apart, and it was heartbreaking because my mom and her siblings still fight at the dinner table to this day over the legacy that was blown. So I hate to say it, Grandpa, but he was both my hero and my goat.
Wow.
And then another fellow, Nick Murray, who's been in our industry for 60 years now. He coaches me through the ups and downs. Helps me remain an optimist.
And business owners, as you know, they always have keys to success, and definitions are different to them. So most of them, always ask their financial advisors advice. What advice do you give to someone today who's kind of going through some ups and downs in business to stay the course?
Simple one is figure out what your customers and clients really need. Really need. Listen. If you figure out what they really need, then you can respond and provide it. So step one is figure out what you really need. And then step two, I wouldn't have identified myself as an entrepreneur until 10 years ago. I was just a financial advisor, a wealth manager. So I didn't blossom as an entrepreneur until I was in my mid-40s. So I would also say stay the damn course. Don't quit. If you feel it, keep going.
And a lot of folks, you know, they're working out more, they're running, they're reading. I know, what's your daily routine like to make sure you're healthy mind and you're physically ready to take on any adversity that comes your way?
Yep. So Sonia and I work out typically 6 days a week. So I ran 5 miles this morning, ran 5 miles yesterday, I lifted. So first thing we do every morning is get up, have our coffee, then we get going. We do an hour of working out. Then we eat something healthy. Now I am a wine lover, so you've witnessed a little bit of this. It falls down at night a bit, but typically a kale shake, a kale smoothie, that's my breakfast. Then a salad for lunch.
Wow.
But we did make the mistake and locate the office right next to Charlie's Steakhouse. So, so I might have put on a few pounds since that.
Now, a lot of business owners and a lot of CPAs and a lot of bankers and a lot of industry experts are watching this right now. Who is a good introduction for you, and what kind of industries are you still missing in your virtual office?
So good introductions would be lawyers. So a key component of what we do is partnering with the right lawyer or law firm. And in my experience, it can be about the specific lawyer. Estate and trust is obviously an area we need, but also mergers and acquisitions or someone who does day-to-day business issues. And that can be at a small firm or a big firm. I have found at the bigger firms that's a little harder because they tend to get a little bureaucratic, but you might have a real shining star there, someone who gets our business model. So those attorneys have to get it, want it, and have the capacity for it. But that would be an area that we're still, and we're working with some great firms right now, vetting to figure out who to partner with.
And we'll make sure that your contact information is put up on the screen here, of course. And I just want to touch base on just your initial sense on getting back to normalcy, because I know we during the pandemic we had small intimate events for Questmont, and
Yep.
most recently we had a larger one, and it was socially distanced. CDC guidelines followed, of course, but you took a chance. I mean, a lot of people said, why get back to normal? What do you say to those folks?
So it's part of what I do. A big part of what we do at Questmont is behavioral investment counseling. It's an actual service we provide. So we installed this at the firm about 20 years ago. So if you put yourself in my shoes, I'm managing multi-generational wealth. When someone hires me, it's often a 40, 50, or 60-year commitment we make to them, right? That means we got to get them through hell and high water. So in my career, I have coached clients through, and people forget this, a cholera outbreak, SARS, MERS, Ebola,
Anthrax.
There was even we had a bubonic plague in my career. So the point being is, I don't get too rattled. I can't get too rattled. My clients rely on me and the team and the firm to not get too rattled. Otherwise, they shake out of their plans. So we have to sort of stay the course and encourage them when it's right and healthy to get back to normal. Part of our job.
And it's definitely part of your job. And one of the things I remember you sharing with me early on is you're a trusted advisor to families. And can you, if you don't mind, share that story when I think it was an accident and there was someone in the hospital and.
So a family that was brought to us again by a CPA, because that's how, so CPA grabs the family. They were with a big investment firm, but they weren't getting all of their affairs handled, again, their wills and trusts. So CPA brings them to us about 10 years ago. It's a mom and dad who own a business. They're in their 70s at the time, but they've sold the business. So we developed more of a relationship at that time. The father and I really bonded. He passed away a couple of years ago, and then Sonia, my wife, who's also a partner at our firm, took over the relationship with the widow. They bonded. They became lunch buddies and friends. And so also one of their children, who's a 50-year-old businessman, is also a client. Their other daughter is not a client. So in the middle of April, I get this phone call from the 50-year-old son, and I'm assuming because he's a client, he's calling about the markets, just like, what do you think, and what should we do? And I picked up the phone. I said, hey, I call him Brian. It's not his real name. I said, hey, Brian, how you holding up? I said, are you worried about COVID in the stock market? He said, I wish it were so. He said, I got a horrible story to tell you, Taylor. He said, my sister was over at the house helping my mom load some furniture because mom was moving into a smaller home. And the neighbor woman was there. Who else was there? Obviously the sister's daughter and husband. and the sister accidentally hit the gas backing into the driveway and ran over 5 people. So I get this phone call saying that my sister has just run over my mother, her husband, her daughter, and their recently widowed neighbor. And as a result of it, the widow ultimately had to have her both legs amputated. She subsequently, I'm happy to report, has become my major and my wife's major inspiration. We've now learned that she's walking on her new legs.
That's great to hear.
But the point was, I got the phone call after the medical emergency and the police. I was the first one, not the attorney, not the CPA, not the insurance people, because we had helped coordinate it. So that's the role we end up playing, and they become literally an extension of our family.
That's amazing. Very inspirational. I'm glad to hear it's
working out well. It's got a good ending.
Yeah, that's
as it were.
important. Now, you know, we talked about the industry for the next 5 years, but what about you? I mean, you talked about succession planning, and you talked about moving to Florida with an open office. Do you have any other future states you want to enter? Do you have any other partners you're bringing in? What's the Questmont Strategic Wealth Advisors future?
We believe that the need simply in the Bay Area is so great that we have no intentions of expanding beyond this.
Great.
Just maybe another office, but the need and the demand for what we do. So we really just want to get to know the lay of the land, team up with the right professionals. We have a motto which we say, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well, which pisses off my son lots of the time, but he gets it, right? So right now we just want to really do it well here.
And talk about
expand our presence.
Yeah, your son. I mean, you're your dad, and he's at Tampa Prep, right?
My son's at Tampa Prep now, which he's a bright kid, a real bright kid, but he was never excited by school. Now he's excited by school. But I'm sensing it's the first time he's been challenged. He's in the robotics club, anime, he's in an introduction to engineering, so.
And the work-life balance, I mean, you got to be a dad, you got to be a business person, and it's a lot of things going on right now. How do you balance everything?
So historically, we did it very well. The partners, we all have an agreement where we take lots of vacations. So how Sonia and I really fell in love with the Bay Area was for the last 14 years, we've been coming here for 3 or 4 months a year.
Great.
Now, COVID has screwed that up, so I have to confess our work-life balance has gotten out of whack because taking vacations or getting downtime is hard, and we're now living in what used to be our vacation home. So we're actually searching for a bigger home because that was never the intention. So the work-life balance is something I have done very well with. I used to meditate regularly, now it's a little bit. We keep it pretty good with the exercise, and we make sure we get away as much as we can, but COVID year's been tough.
Now, I know you're inundated with emails like most successful business people. Is there a certain philosophy or a certain email blast or book that you live by when everything's going on? Like
actually,
quotes?
You might be surprised I'm not. One of my weaknesses is that I'm impatient. And my team will tell you that. But one of my strengths is, I'd like to think, I delegate. I have a great team. So I learned this skill 30 years ago. So things usually don't get to me that shouldn't get to me. And that's a testament to I always like to brag. I'm the smartest guy in the room at Questmont, but you know why? Because everyone around me is smarter.
That's right.
So what happens is I have this luxury where things that really shouldn't be, the best use of my skills don't get to me.
Is there a specific book that you recommend to people that really kind of helps you navigate?
Not that, no.
And then the other thing I was going to ask you is about the economists. We heard from an economist not too long ago. I mean, there are some partners that you work with that follow a certain philosophy in the economy, and talk about those folks.
So their philosophy, it's actually a company called First Trust Portfolios out of Wheaton, Illinois. We partnered with them about a dozen years ago for their economic output. And partly because they're accurate. Their chief economist has been voted the most accurate the last 5 years by the Wall Street Journal, but they're also optimistic, as am I. So their philosophy just aligns with ours. Do we like every policy that every party puts out there? No, we're smart. We get paid to analyze those policies. But at the end of the day, Americans are going to keep getting up. They're going to keep going to work. They're going to keep wanting to dream and take vacations and raise their family and pass their business on and do good for charity. And so as long as that desire is there, we're going to be just fine. So First Trust helps us because the information they distribute pretty much proves that. I mean, I'm not that old, but when I came into the industry, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was at 1,000.
Wow.
Think about that. And I ain't that old. And today it's north of 28,000. So despite 9/11, despite COVID, despite the Great Recession, onward and upward.
Well, I think we're running short on time, but I know there's a couple things I might not have asked that you want to add on. Is there something you want people to take away from this interview?
I would like to tell the people now that we have been embedded in the community for the last 7 months, thanks. The reception we have had is amazing. People here seem to be open to new business ideas. In fact, there's almost a competition when they meet us to introduce us to other people, right? And then I love central Pennsylvania, but that's not the dynamic there. So I would really just want to say thanks, and the folks out there who see this that know me will know exactly what I'm talking about. They've just taken us under their wing, all these great new friends, all these great business connections, and we're sort of flabbergasted. Like, wow.
Yeah, at Elevating, we always tell our folks that, anyone is free for coffee. You just got to ask. And if you don't ask, you're not going to get.
Yep.
So we appreciate you. We're excited to work with you in Tampa Bay. We're excited for you to continue to grow in Tampa and hire and get more involved in the community when we're allowed to,
Yep.
and have
Yep.
more events like the one we did a few weeks ago.
But we have some fun charity events planned. I've been talking to the folks at Advent, the Carrollwood Foundation, about some good stuff next year.
Well, let's close on that. What about Advent Health attracts you to get involved?
Well, partly because it's Carrollwood. So we've lived in New Tampa. We've been looking at homes in that area. So selfishly, that's a community we're in, or going to be in. But the simple mission is this new MRI machine. It's very simple, right? So I could focus on that. I could say, okay, that's worth having, and you can see the multiple uses. And quite frankly, Sonia and I, since we moved here, we're not doing the charity work we were doing back in Pennsylvania. We need an outlet. We need a platform. So that was the first one that came on our path. But one thing that we do really well at Questmont, and Sonia and I, is we do fundraisers for charity.
Great.
We had one in our backyard called Bubbles and Ballet, where we charged an attendance fee, and then we had the local youth ballet do performances on the hour every hour. But all of the proceeds went to the youth ballet. So I'm looking forward to when we get back to a little bit better health, we can do those types of things.
And we have that photo, of course, we'll put up on the screen of your $10,000 donation to Advent Health Carrollwood the other day. So thank you for giving to the community. Thank you for your time today. We really appreciate you, and send our best to everyone at Questmont Strategic Wealth Advisors.
Bank on it. Thanks, Aakash.
This is Aakash Patel with Elevate Inc., and today's guest was Taylor Ranker of Questmont Strategic Wealth Advisors. We'll see you next time on Elevating Today.